One of my favorite things in the summertime, actually in the late spring, is to go out and harvest and eat the asparagus. It's like when it just comes fresh out of the ground, you just can't beat it. And here at Anderson Seed, we've got a couple different ways that you can have asparagus going in your backyard as well too. So the best thing to do is to plan your area out properly. Make sure it gets full sun, well drained. It doesn't like really heavy clay soils, and likes a fairly good source of water. So when you're planning out your area, make sure you've got those three ingredients, or else you're not going to have great success with your asparagus. So we definitely want to have as much sun as possible, and rockier soil is actually better than a clay soil. And as we prepare the soil, we want to mix some organic matter in there, some good slow release fertilizer. So generally we will do soil building compost, which is one of our favorites, and probably a little bit of 16-16-16. Till that into a depth of 12 to 14 inches if at all possible. Make sure and till that soil really well before you get your asparagus planted. And then what you want to do is you want to dig a trench, and this is our makeshift trench for today. We're going to use this tray of soil, but we will dig a trench right in the middle of our asparagus patch, and spacing on the asparagus probably between rows, I'd probably go about 3 feet between rows, but you want to dig a trench that's about 8 to 10 inches deep at the most. We usually don't want to go any deeper than that, but 8 to 10 inches works out really quite well. And then in the bottom of that trench, we always like to put a little bit of slow release fertilizer, and one of our favorites is our bone meal. So the high yield bone meal is an excellent way to get started. It's a natural source of very slow release phosphorus, and we're just going to sprinkle that down in the bottom of our row. So I'm going to take my container, and we'll just sprinkle a little bit down the bottom. And usually I'll work it into the soil just a little bit, so that as the asparagus roots start to expand, they'll be able to grow right into that bone meal. So generally I'll take a rake or something, and I'll kind of work that bone meal down into the bottom of the soil. The bone meal, being a natural source of phosphorus, it breaks down very gradually, and so it doesn't move very well through the soil, so it's going to stay pretty much right where you put it. So as you plant your asparagus right on top of it, as the roots develop, they'll just go right into that layer where you've planted, or where you've put the bone meal, and it'll feed them for pretty much the whole year, maybe into the next year. Now there's a couple different ways you can do it. If you're going to do the trench like this, you definitely want to do the roots. Now these roots are 2-year-old roots, so asparagus take 3 years before they're really ready to start harvesting. So with the 2-year-old root, you can start harvesting the next year. So we won't be able to harvest them this year that we plant them, but we'll be able to harvest them next year, and that works really well. So as we put them down in the bottom of the trench, this is a really long one, so it's going to kind of fill up my trench here, but we'll plant another one in there. Don't try and spread the legs out like you would an octopus and plant them like that. Just leave them kind of bundled together, and just lay them just down in the bottom of the trench with the crown. Can you see the crown there? That's where your asparagus is actually going to come up. You want to kind of have the crown pointing up just a little bit. So we'll plant ours just like that. And then when I planted the next one, of course I wouldn't want the roots to overlap quite this much, but I'd put the next one just right here, and the crown kind of wants to face up there, and I lay them in the bottom of the trench just like that. Before I cover them up, we like to put a little bit of mycorrhiza on there. The mycorrhiza really makes the plants go like crazy, and the myc comes in a couple different ways. This is a product in a nice little small package. It's called Mycos. They both have the exact same mycorrhiza in there. Mycorrhiza is a natural fungus that as it starts to grow, it'll colonize the root system of the plants that it's been treated with, and it goes out in search of water and nutrient, and within just a short amount of time, 3 or 4 weeks, it will completely colonize that root system and double or triple the amount of root mass that the plants have, and also their ability to pick up water and nutrients. So this is really an amazing product. So we'll take the Mycos, and you want to make sure it comes right in contact with the root system. So you'd sprinkle it right in there, so that as it starts to grow, once we cover it up, those roots are going to come right in contact with that mycorrhiza, and we'll sprinkle that in there. Then at this point we would cover up our asparagus, so we can cover those guys up. I'll just use the existing soil, but usually I like to start with about 3 inches of soil is what I would cover them up with. So once you have them in that bottom of that 8-inch trench, we're going to cover them with about 3 inches of soil and then water them with the root stimulator. The root stimulator has a mild fertilizer in there, plus a rooting hormone, so it's going to really encourage some root development. It's really going to get those roots to take off, and then once the mycorrhiza kicks in, your asparagus will just go like crazy. And just that little bit of fertilizer will help give them that kick start, because the bone meal will be a little bit take a little bit longer for it to start working. So water them with that, and then as your asparagus start to grow up through the soil, you're going to cover them up with another 2 or 3 inches of soil, and then as they grow up through that, you're going to cover them up with the last 2 to 3 inches of soil, and then they'll be completely covered up. And then you really won't want to harvest them until next year. Just let them come up, let those spears produce ferns and seed, and they'll drop that seed, and that seed will germinate and start more asparagus coming up. But that first year you're going to leave them, and then the next year is when you can really start harvesting them. If you don't want to do them from roots like these roots that I've got, these bare root, you could also start them from seed, and I've got the seed here as well too. But the seed's going to take a little bit longer, but in the long run it's probably a little bit less expensive, but the roots much quicker, and these are wonderful varieties that we're doing. From seed we've got Mary Washington, and from roots we've got Jersey Knight, and the Jersey Knight, extremely productive and a wonderful variety of asparagus. And if you enjoy eating asparagus as much as I do, you'll want to have a patch in your backyard as well.